Welcome, kayak anglers. You are tuning into the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, kayak fishing's best network of shows with great hosts covering all things kayak fishing, bringing you special guests covering topics such as shore fishing, river trips, gear reviews, angler profiles, tournament news, and more. Sit back, relax. Let's do this.
What is going on, everybody? I'm your host, Adam Frasr, and I welcome you to another River Run podcast. Man, it is awesome to be back in here in the studio. My guest tonight is the one and only Ryan Parker. But before we dive into having him come on the show, this is gonna be great. Ryan was one of the guests on the Down the Scuffer Hole, which was a new series that we've come out with. We're just literally going down the rabbit hole on all sorts of different conversations, topics, whatnot, guests. So no, that was cool. It was a long one. I won't lie. Like, I didn't expect it to go that long, but hey, you can't stop a good conversation. And for anybody that's into car camping, if you haven't checked it out already, go check it out. Go check out obviously the YouTube channel is the River Run Podcast. Always First and foremost, go check out Paddle and Fin's YouTube channel. You can also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, both Paddle and Fin, both River Run Podcast. You can also check out my guest tonight. He is on Instagram also. You probably know him. You probably heard of him, Mr. Ryan Parker. He is quite a phenomenal tournament angler in the Kayak series. Especially in the Kayak Adventure Series. Before we bring him on, though, just a couple things I want to dive into. Don't forget, Dubro Fishing offers all of our listeners an awesome save 10 at checkout. You know the listener code. The listener code is, if you're listening, is RRUN10. That's all capitals. Check it out. Use it at checkout. Go get yourself a Do More utility cup. It is, I'm telling you, it'll be like the best thing you've added to your kayak, boat, car, whatever, canoe for all you, pontoons, whatever you guys need. Dubro's got tons of stuff for you. It's just tickling my nose there. And don't forget, the Kayak Adventure Series is going down to Franklin, Pennsylvania, to Broodstock number 2, and that's right, they're stopping by. This is going to be cool. This is the last event of the year. Loads of Drew's always going to have a party, so go check it out. They got lots of stuff going down there. September 12th through 13th is your actual tournament showdown. But yeah, go check out, support a good time. I believe my guest tonight, Mr. Ryan Parker, he's going to be there. So yeah. And once again, we take the time to thank, some of our other sponsors, as in Yak Attack, Jackson Kayaks, and Hard Knocks Kayak Fishing. And don't forget, always go and take the time to check out Paddle and Fin, because at the end of the day, this isn't possible without Paddle and Fin, and they're such a huge support of the podcast. And they have a lot of awesome shows coming out every week. So, and if you're into saltwater river fishing, want to talk tournament stuff, you want to talk about the Susquehanna, there's a show for you. So go check out paddleandfin.com. Check them out on YouTube. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram. Give them a like, give them a share, give them a comment. We appreciate each and every one of you. First and foremost, I did want to say thanks to everybody who was chiming in on the Down the Scupper Hole event. That was cool. I apologize if any of the Facebook comments didn't make it up. For some reason, I could see the comments coming in. I kept sharing them, but it doesn't seem like it would share into the Facebook side of things, where it seemed to share the YouTube. So don't forget, go check out the YouTube channel, Riverman Podcast TV. It is all there. So yeah, without any further ado, let's bring on Mr. Ryan Parker. What's going on, dude? How are you?
Doing well.
Thank you for obviously taking the time to come back on the podcast. Like, we were having a lot of fun with all of the, conversation regarding car camping. And
that was a hard one to leave. Like I had the other podcasts I had to get onto, and I was like, man, I want to stick around, keep talking.
Oh, dude, I didn't even, at one point I almost had to, like, I was like looking at the time, I'm like, wow, like we're still going strong, and and I feel like there could almost be a part 2. So but yeah, no, that's the whole point of it. It's just people come on, and what do we all like to do when we're not fishing is talk fishing or talk some sort of relation to fishing.
Yeah, I have since built like my own little privacy shower that I can mount to the side of my roof rack, like since that conversation with Jeff and Jameson and Jay. So I went further down the scupper hole on my own end.
See it, and that's what I mean. Like, the whole idea was, we're not just sharing our experiences and what we do. We know what works for us, but it's, we're all going to walk away with something. And you could tell too, like, you could hear Jeff, with, all that he has. And then you hear Jameson talking about what he has. And then you look at, Jay, myself, and you, I guarantee everybody, and who knew that, and awesome that Steve Baker was able to, charm in on that also.
Yeah,
like,
that's he's
super handy.
He's got a cool setup, and I'm like, when the budget allows, I definitely like to do that. Like I'll be at Broodstock this weekend, and I'm like fully in on dispersed camping for basically Wednesday through Sunday. So we're gonna see how it goes with the batteries and how I've got everything set up. So it's a little bit of a test, and I don't know why I've chosen a tournament to test this all out, but
do you find that this might be like, again, like, just adds to that pressure, like, I need to perform as good as everything else that's gonna come into play that day?
I mean, at the end of the day, if I run out of batteries or I can't charge something, I'll just go back to what I do here. I'll go back to a paddle and a couple rods, and just I don't know. There's like, when you keep things really simplistic, you're and maybe you can't go as far, you can't second guess things. So, you just slide the boat in wherever you can get it in that's public, and just do what you do and work with what you have. And we all didn't start with motors and kayak, like most of us, I think, had, didn't jump right into it with a motor and 10 rods and this, 70 pounds of tackle and whatever. And honestly, I've done that, and I've tried it. I actually had the trailer. I had a PA-14. I used to carry 14 rods, legit 70 pounds of tackle. I weighed it once, and after a while I was like, man, this is like just my garage of fishing gear at this point. Like, I'm only using the same, 4 things all the time. Why don't I just get rid of all this stuff? Because now I have to, with the trailer, I'm kind of locked into boat ramps, and parking is an issue and stuff like that. And I took a year off of tournaments, kind of right after my son was born, and I just went back to like just doing. I didn't even take the motor then a lot. I would just go. I
I'm
went
just
back to the paddle, 2 rods, and a pocket. Like a couple baits, just tossed in the cup holder. 2 packs of plastics, and I had one of the most phenomenal river years I think I've ever. I've had in a long time, at least in Central Ohio, and I think I reminded myself how effective just keeping things simple can be.
100%. Like, I can't agree with you more on this, because for me, like, I don't personally, I don't have a motor for either of my kayaks. I'm not really interested in running electronics. I would rather just go out there with maybe like 3 rods, some tackle, a paddle, and that's how I want to float the river. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that for me, it's just going back to the basics. It's like going back to where I started, when I got into kayak fishing in like 2014. Like, I didn't know about anything. Like, I was just like,
Yeah.
I just knew, I had a paddle and a rod, and I didn't have measuring board. I didn't have any of that. For me, it was just to get out there. And I feel like this year I have not taken my trailer out of the garage, other than moving things in and out of the garage. I'll move my trailer, but my trailer, which can haul up to like 3, 4, 5 kayaks. Yeah, between 3 and 5 kayaks. Has all the gear holders and whatnot you need. I just take my kayak and go on top of my journey. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, and it's even funner because I don't go to the launch. I find my access through, Google Maps and whatnot. And, obviously make sure you're
part of the
crossing.
fun, I think.
Yeah.
I certainly enjoy it. And that was like, so I took the year off. I think my son was 2. And he was just starting to get to the point where like 2 going on 3, or right around 3, I think. And I took that year off, and because he was just getting to that point, like, where's dad going for like 5 days? And I don't want to, I didn't want to miss all that stuff. And I wanted to wait until he kind of understood a little bit better. Like, oh, dad just goes away. Like, he's going on a fishing thing for 4 or 5 days, and then he'll be back. And, but it was, and then Drew started, in the meantime, Drew started the Kayak Adventure Series. And I honestly, that year off, I was on the fence at even getting back into, at least national trail stuff. Because I was having more fun just going back and doing that, doing what got me into it in the first place, which was, like you said, before catchboards and all this gear and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I got my first true fishing kayak in 2016. That was a Jackson Kilroy, the original, not the HD, like
Very
the
nice.
lightweight one. And it is still to date the longest I've ever held on to one single kayak. I'm like, I get ideas, and then I trade boats, like buy and sell and trade boats like crazy, because I have to know. But that one was, I literally I waded as far as I could wade in either direction, and I wanted to know what was that way, further that way down the river or further that way up the river. And so that led me to that kayak that has led me to all of this. But yeah, when Drew started the Kayak Adventure Series, I was like, man, like, all right, I'll try one, and without practice or anything, on a whim, I drove down to Georgia, and like
Shoalipalooza.
I think I got a hold of the Raccoon Creek Outfitter guys. It was like, hey, Dustin, do you have a spot that I can even just park? Like, I have 0 plans. I didn't think I was coming down here, and I got the green light, so I'm driving 9 hours tomorrow. I'll be there just in time for check-in, and I'm just going to figure it out. I've never fished these rivers. I've never caught a shoal bass before, and
back to the basics.
Yeah, and Google Earth's a great tool, but it was I fell in love with it, like that specific trail series, the adventure of it, the fun of it. And as last year kind of progressed, like I realized, like I was like, this is one, he's created something special. I think it's brought a lot of that community back that I was kind of missing from like some of the local trail stuff. And obviously we had, the pandemic years that we just couldn't do
Yeah.
that stuff. But man, it just never came back. And that was part of the whole thing that I really I enjoyed the most was the community aspects of it.
I think that's probably been for me what I've noticed about like all of the Kayak Adventure Series events, and in its second season year, what you see from the videos, from the pictures, when you've spoken to the people who've been there, they all say the same thing. It's just like these are my people. This comes together as more of a community aspect than it's a it's tournament aspect. I'm sure there are people there that are very engaged to what they, but it seems to be most of the people are there to just for the camaraderie, to be and celebrate the sport, and just to kind of all go back to what brought you there.
And it's I think there is still a high level of competition and competitiveness, but it's at the end of everything, you don't just get the top 10 in a hotel conference room. It's a to-do with everyone, and we're all kind of sharing our experiences with others and stuff like that. But like there's people that I met last year that I've just continued having conversations with through winter, all through this year. And, I root them on as much as I hope they're cheering me on sometimes too. I mean, of course I want to beat those guys. But at the same time, I'm excited when, some of my new buddies that I've met through this, do well. And, I had a big year with it last year, and so I'm excited when somebody else gets to experience that too.
You had a pretty big year last year. Just because we can see the trophies in the background, but just walk us through how big your year was last year. And this was your first year of coming back into a tournament. So you went from kind of getting back to the basics, just kind of going out there, and then you decide I want to give this Kayak Adventure Series a try. And how does that unfold for you?
It was like last minute trip to Georgia to even see if just because I was like, it's kind of my thing. And that whole trip, it was like, I think I finished 14th. I don't know, 14th or something like that. Like I didn't do too bad. I beat Steve Kennedy, and I'll remember that. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I beat Steve Kennedy by by a quarter or half an inch, but I was like, still, I beat an Elite Series angler.
There you go.
Cool. And I've never been here. He lives down there. I think he fished the, is it the Chattahoochee? I think was one of the rivers. That's like his backyard river. But it was a ton of fun, and that was. But like when I I had a flat tire, like got off the water at like day 2 of the tournament, and my tire is flat, like zero air. A guy just comes wandering out of the woods while I'm like digging for a jack, and it's my truck was parked like this on the side of a mountain, like it was not at a great angle to change a tire. And this guy comes wandering out of the woods. He's like, tire's flat. And I was like, yes, sir, it is. Appreciate that.
Appreciate the help.
He happened to have a, pump and stuff like that. But and that's kind of my whole, the whole down the scupper hole thing is like, it's all been built off of the experiences of last year. And so I have like a little orange waterproof case that has like a full tire repair, inflators, patches, all sorts of stuff. Because I had just picked up a huge hunk of metal at some point. But yeah, we were able to get that thing inflated enough that I was able to race back to the Airbnb before I had to, before it went flat again.
Wow.
And I had a full-size spare and stuff, but I was like, there's not a good spot to do this. And the Airbnb is 15 minutes if I drive like I'm, rally racing down this wildlife management area, gravel road. And, but yeah, like, so Georgia kind of was like, okay, yeah, this is for me. And then was it Whitehall next? I think it was, because yeah, Georgia was May. So, and then yeah, I go up to Michigan, and I do my research, and it's 5 hours from home, couple days of practice, and I found more big smallmouth than I've ever seen in a river, and it was just reading conditions, and I ended up winning that event. And so that just like, to me, that was the high moment. I was like, oh man, I just like, cool, I won one. And I can't remember the order of the events last year.
That's what I was trying to look up right now.
Yeah.
Trying to get this going here.
Because, I think July was Missouri.
Yeah, the Ozarks?
Yeah, I think it was the Ozarks. And
Yeah.
The trend last year was like fishing like aftermath of like hurricanes and tropical storms blowing through. So a lot of that was all blown out, and didn't do as bad as I thought I did. It was kind of fishing tough for the river guys, and
okay, so I have it right now. So last year it started in Georgia, then it went to Whitehall, Michigan, and then down to Missouri, back up to Pennsylvania, over to Wisconsin, then down to Bowling Green, Kentucky, which would be Broodstock 1. There you go.
Yeah, so Missouri was, I think, my worst finish of. No, Wisconsin was, I think. So it was Missouri, which was kind of shaky, and then North Branch, Susky. I've never been up that far around Towanda or the New York area, and I just, the first day of practice, like Steve Baker and I had, at this point, we've just teamed up. We've decided we're going to do the whole rest of the season as a team. And before the Susky, he and I were, discussing the impending weather moving in and the advantages of doing kind of a crazy long river trip. And so that first day of practice, we planned to do our put in and takeout were, I think it was like 24 and a half miles or something like that, right around 24 miles, give or take, from A to B. And our thought was, well, if we can do this in 10, 12 hours of practice, we'll already know where to stop and fish. So we should be able to do that in 8 hours, like no problem. Literally there's this outside bend bluff wall right where we put in, in a creek, we floated out, and I saw this thing, and I was like, and I like 2 casts, 2 fish over 18. I threw in there 2 more times, and it got bit, and I just shook them off. And I was like, these are all big fish on this bluff wall. And I told Steve, I was like, dude, that bluff wall's loaded. And this was Wednesday, so we're like, and it's so obvious, like right across from a launch. I was like, oh my God, somebody else is going to find this.
Oh man.
I saw Hans Newts take out there when Steve dropped me off. There was a parade going on in the little town that we launched out of, and we didn't know about it or something. And so there was just a huge long line of traffic. So at some point I was like, dude, I'm just going to walk back down to my truck. Like, I'll see you back at the campground. There's no sense of you both of us sitting in all this. Like, I think I can walk faster. And so I saw Hans take out, but that was the only person I saw. And
wow.
So and it just worked out that I was able to, I think do the damage I needed to do on that thing before the river really, really blew out. So I won that one, and, so like another big high moment, like I was like,
for sure.
One was huge for me, in my mind, to win, 2 of them in just a few months. Like, that's massive. so now I was like, my mind was really on, Broodstock. I was like, because that's, the structure of it for Angler of the Year. I was like, man, like I need to kind of play defense and try to do well, as a team, in Wisconsin. Steve and I did okay collectively as a team in Missouri. We did okay as a team in Wisconsin, and we won the team one in on the Susky. So
and the one on the Susky, that was like right in the mix of tropical depression. Debbie. I think Debbie.
Yeah, it was Debbie.
I remember being in upstate New York for a kids fishing camp, and me and a couple of the other volunteers were like, yeah, like I don't know how this day is gonna pan out. Like the amount of rain that's supposed to fall
unreal.
Was unreal. And I remember like roads beginning to get shut down in the Adirondacks because they were just flooding. Like they were just like, I even drove by the river that I fished constantly, and I was like, wow, it's like, just the morning and this thing is already blown out.
Steve and I had finished our 24-mile float, which when he dropped pins the whole way, and he figured out, like, just through Google Earth breadcrumbs, that we did 30, I think it was like 34.5 miles or something like that. Ooh. Like of all the zigzagging and running back up island chains and stuff. So 34.5 miles between A and B. And we finished a little more than 2 hours early, and my truck was in like 2 feet of water, like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water already. Wow. It was starting to creep in the cab a little bit. Like I'm lucky it started up the first shot. And we thought we parked it high enough for, what was projected, but what we didn't take account for was this. I mean, and it wasn't a creek coming in; it was a ditch. Like it was maybe 4 feet across.
Wow,
maybe 4 feet across this little ditch, and it was like an 8-foot wave of whitewater spewing out of the end of it, backflowing the entire area. But I remember talking with Dustin Hoy and Robert Weicker, and they were like, dude, we could hear boulders moving out of the creeks coming in, like in all the whitewater. And I think the river rose like 6 feet while we were on it, and it ultimately crested it was like 13 feet in 24 hours or something like that. It was like, if it wasn't such a wide river, I would have felt like I would have been pretty unnerved by that. But I mean, and there were, like, at some point, like there were trees just floating by us, full trees, root ball, the whole thing just going down the river. But it's so wide that you don't really feel like you're in danger. Like you can manage it. It's just higher, muddy, faster flow, but it's not whitewater. So, and especially having the motor that's a big advantage to that.
Well, I was just going to ask that. Like having a motor would probably be a huge advantage, because at least you'd be able to, if you had something coming your way, you could technically get out of the way.
Get out of the way fast.
And if you needed to, turn around, where if you're paddling, or even with the pedal drive, there's
a few guys that did, just like Mark Bradford paddled the whole time. He stuck around those island chains, and he just tuck up in the eddies behind the islands, and he kept catching fish all day long too. So like hats off to guys like Mark, because I know he wasn't the only one that was doing that. And but yeah, that one was kind of a wild event. My truck was kind of literally baptized in the Susquehanna that trip. Spilled my water. But
you're just trying to relive that whole flooding.
I know. Right now. I'm gonna flood my basement. Is what.
No, but like I gotta ask you though, like as you kind of come through, for we were kind of, before we got onto the podcast, like we were talking behind stage, and like we were just kind of going back about like the ways that we fish and how we like to fish and whatnot. And we got on the whole concept of braid, and we were talking about leaders and monofilament, fluorocarbon, and whatnot. do you find that with the way that you fish and your way your partner fishes, are you guys in some ways, are you working the same things?
Yeah.
Do you have the same
Well,
ideas, or do you kind of clash at
that's a
that
good
point, but you
question.
work well on the water, you know?
So that's like a really good question, because last year fishing with Steve and I are like identical. And I think when I first initially kind of camped and stayed with Steve in Michigan, and stuff, we'd never fished together up until that. We're on the same. We work for a local shop, Loveland Paddle Sports, down around Cincinnati, and that's how we know each other.
Cool.
But when you're competitive and you don't necessarily know somebody, or like, you could be a little trepidatious with like who you camp with, share information with, in an event.
Yeah.
You just have that conversation of like, so we're not stepping on each other's toes and whatever, but we like discovered like, oh wow, we just fish the same way. So when we kind of decided, all right, we're going to make a run at this as a team, it was, I think, hugely advantageous, because Steve and I both like to cover an absolute ton of water. So we would divide and conquer. And I think for any number of practice, like, he and I, between the two of us, would probably cover, depending on the river, we could probably cover 40 to 80 miles of river in, 3 days of practice, which is crazy.
Yeah. That's
And
a lot. That's a lot.
just because we're just running and sampling, we're both just, we do what we do. Because if we're not strangers to covering, 12 miles a day with the motors and stuff like that. And when you're just looking for like just the spots you're going to spend a half hour or so, you don't need to catch all the fish on Wednesday. You need to just figure out, okay, they're here. Let's just keep going. We're going to drop a waypoint, drop a pin on Google Maps here.
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep going and doing that. And Steve and I fishing the same way, we could rotate through our patterns and share those notes back. We prefer to camp. That's just, for me, it's a mental thing. Like, I like to camp because I don't want 7 other voices telling me what they're doing in a day. Like, I get tunnel vision into what I'm doing, and it helps me. I think sometimes it hurts me, but I think for the most part, it helps me. I don't second guess things or have these other thoughts running through my head. I'm like, well, I mean, even if my jig bite's dying, I should still be able to catch 5 on a jig. And that's the thing that's been working for me. So I have the confidence in that. And I don't care if so-and-so's throwing a bug or doing this or that or whatever.
So when we talk about jigs here, what would be your favorite jig to throw? Like, what style of jig?
My favorite, I go back and forth. There are 2 jigs that I probably throw more than anything. If I am legitimately kind of fishing heavier wood and cover, I use the BizBaits Heavy Finesse jigs, usually like 3/8 or a half. But my favorite open river jig is the Basto Pillhead. I put that in a Dark Horse asked me if to collaborate and do that July river box for them.
Very
and that
cool.
jig was in there, and I like, it's not just the river jig, but like, seriously, it's hands down like the best open river jig I've ever used. Comes through everything, doesn't get hung up. You can drift it, fish it, just about any way that you want. But it's basically a full skirted compact jig with a little bit finer hook. So on those real light bites, it's not hard to get hook penetration, which smallmouth are crafty like that. They test things, and they will pick things up without you realizing it a lot of times and start moving it. But
yeah, I definitely find, in my experience, the smaller the hook with, like, especially those compact jig, I find for me, I get bit more than I
Mhm.
would with a traditional football jig, or even I don't find so much with the actual like swim jigs where you're constantly just moving that through the water. But I find with anything that you're going to be kind of bouncing across the bottom, I just find that smaller hook, it just allows for
It's
better penetrate. Like but
you
you're
get them in the right spot.
yeah, where the bigger
Yeah,
ones, I find it's, I don't know what it is. It's
I
like the
tear bigger holes, I think, with the bigger ones,
yeah.
and then it just allows them to leverage that hook out easier. Um,
Even the trailer itself, I find just sits more natural on on a smaller hook than a trailer on, like a big beefy,
yeah, I think it
flipping
might
hook.
also just be representative of the forage. When they're looking down, they're looking for crawls and things like that, and a lot of times they're not eating the 7-inch big giant, the big giant mini
Yeah.
lobsters down there. They're eating the ones that are 2.5 to 3.5 inches because those are the easiest to eat. And I can't remember what we all know the Berkeley study with that, but I've read other ones where they would literally, like, the biggest fish would wait for like the little ones to pick the pinchers off because that's what they have to do. But
Yeah.
like the little ones to eat them, the big fish would come in and eat the crawdads and stuff like that. But I remember the most notable thing to me, I think, about that whole thing was like when they said like they'd dump a bucket of various size crawdads in a tank, and they would, but always the biggest crawdads were always the ones that were just left over crawling around the tank. Like all the little ones would get eaten up, and all the big ones would just get left alone. Like it's just not worth their trouble to get pinched and deal with those things. And I'd imagine, I have no idea about the aging, like the life of a
Yeah, the
crawdad, but like,
lifespan of a
do their
crawdad. Yeah.
exoskeletons get just harder, and you
Yeah.
know as they get older? I have no idea, but I imagine a bass's crushers can only handle so much. So
Yeah.
um
So I'm thinking the pinchers just get,
yeah,
just
just get
pinch harder,
lodged, and yeah.
I don't know, but this is my personal experience when it comes to jig fishing, and that's one of the things that for me, like, I totally began to notice. I was like, well, that's, and then even just a smaller trailer, just something that's just
Yeah.
doesn't really necessarily need the full body, that make that larger presentation, just that smaller, more natural. I don't know.
Yeah,
For me, it worked, and
it's
maybe other people can have been the
that's
same
my
boat, but
experience is, yeah, I don't go much bigger than a 3/0 hook if I can get away with it, and my trailers are usually a variety of chunk. The
now
appendages give me action if I need it, and
on a swim jig, I remember you talking about
I go a different angle with that.
you go a whole different angle with that, and I think this is kind of neat. Well, we're just talking about jigs, and because jig fishing is fun, and this is cool because for me, I prefer, and this is just my personal opinion, I prefer a bigger trailer. I want something that gives more thump. I want something, and to me, the size of the hook doesn't really pertain for me. Like when I'm choosing swim jigs, it's more the weight and the trailer that I'm going to go for versus, do I want something that's more, has that smaller profile? I want something that displaces more water,
Yeah,
because I can fish it, and you can fish it all sorts of different ways. But yeah, so
I my I often put like a 4.5 to 5.5 inch swim bait on the back of my swim
yeah,
jigs.
yeah,
I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce more times than not. Even even in like a foot of water, I'll
yep,
throw the 1/2 ounce, and it's the reaction strike thing. Like I'm presenting a big meal to a specific place, and I'm asking that fish to eat it right now.
yeah,
Um, I fish these things on like 8-to-1, 9-to-1 gear ratio reels. Like I'm moving them really fast, and it's like if nothing eats it, because I'm really placing this in really pinpoint places a lot of times, and it displaces a lot of water, but it doesn't have a lot of commotion, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like it's
Yeah,
not a
I like
it's
that
not a
approach.
not a chatterbait, not a
Nope.
spinnerbait. It's not big, flashy, bulky. I mean, it is bulky,
It is.
but it's especially when you get into that real shallow water and stuff. This is the bite that I had up in Minnesota this year. I was literally fishing the bank trenches. That was like you'd have that gravel bar that's like 4 inches deep, but it would drop into that 10-inch trough with an undercut bank. And I was literally just throwing it every foot up those banks because those fish wouldn't move much more than a foot to eat anything. And it was like if nothing ate it in the first crank of the reel handle,
It's like,
nothing was gonna. So burn it back, throw it out again. But they were very, very aggressive towards anything coming into their space, and that's the whole idea with the big package is those spots where those fish are, there's room for one fish, and they don't want something else coming in there. They don't, they big
yeah.
fish get territorial. They don't like it, and so that was kind of, I think. I mean, I didn't ask them, but that's what I believe is happening. I don't speak smallmouth, but
Sometimes
some days I believe I do, and then other days.
see you've
so
made a
much.
connection judging by the trophies in the background. You've made some sort of translation with them.
This past Saturday says otherwise.
What were you throwing this past Saturday?
Oh, this past Saturday I was fishing a little river just north of Columbus here, like an hour, and it was absolutely crystal clear and low.
Oh
So yeah, I was throwing a little 3-inch. I was hover strolling quite a bit, which is not on most river guys' radar. But I started seeing fish shy away from a 3-inch paddle, like finesse paddle tail swim bait. I was like, how do I dumb this down more? I'll just throw a minnow that doesn't do anything, and so I would just straight swim it.
Do you think that when you're hooking like those smaller finesse paddle tails, like I usually just like I'll use anything from like those mega bass ones with the prop style ones. I forget the name of them.
I don't know the name. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Somebody will be like, that's it. And then the other one that I like is the Jig Masters.
The perfected ball head or the sled head?
Sled head.
Okay. I love the ball head. I think it gives it a little bit more body roll.
Okay, so I've never tried those ones. I've always done these sled heads. Recommendations from Brad and Matt. But for me, it was just one of those things, and I definitely found that the hover using I think it's because the way that when it's cutting through the water and it's just constantly it's weighted in the front, so it naturally just wants to fall, right? And then you bring it back up, and then it falls again, or you're burning it back, right? What I find with the hover rig or any just like that style, it's just it just hovers, and it doesn't take a lot to get it at a more natural presentation, I guess you could say.
It actually slows you down, and because there's never enough weight that you'll know when you go too fast because it'll start rolling up on its side, a lot like a mag draft. But I think it's helpful, especially if you're dropping all the way down to that. You almost, for me especially, I have trouble slowing down. So when a bait has a blowout point, it forces me to stay. I know when I'm fishing too fast because I have that visual cue and I see it on its side, coming back to the boat. Okay, I have to slow that down more. And that's part of why I prefer the mag drafts. There's a lot of that style 6-inch swim bait. But for me, I think they shine the most, as they kind of linger in that area and just, again, it's a big thing. And if you put that in a big fish's presence, they don't like it there. So the longer that kind of hovers in there,
I was just gonna say
the
that.
more
Yeah.
they get pissed off with it. But again, for me, I I just do better if I have the visual cue of it like turning up, blowing out, and turning up on its side. It slows me down to fish it more effectively.
Now, going back to the ball head on swim jigs. Well, sorry, the ball head on paddle tails. For me, there is one brand. I think it's JVC or yeah, and they make a twist lock style where you can thread it on, and it's a round ball head, and those I really like those on like a 4 to 5 inch, and the way it just I don't know.
Are you
what
talking the
it is.
VMC hybrid heads?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Those
That's yeah. Those
my
are
favorite.
like perfect size for that 4 to 5.
Yeah.
And then the Jig Masters Perfected, because they have the screw lock too.
Okay.
I think they're a 2/0 hook on all of those, and they're perfect for that like 2 3/4 to like 3.5, 4-inch size.
Oh, okay.
So my preferred finesse swim baits are HH Customs Guppy if I'm going like real small, slender body.
Yeah.
It's a 3-inch swim bait, or the big Joshies, both the 2 3/4
I like the
and
Joshies.
3 1/4. That's I put that out there. It's been in Ohio and this area of the country for a long time, and not a lot of it doesn't ever feel like it's caught on elsewhere.
Well, it caught on to me because I did order some probably about like 2 years ago, I think, and I'll be honest with you, I've caught everything from pike to walleye to bass, largemouth and smallmouth.
I had like a 36-inch muskie hit one the other day.
I was using the Dirty Money. Dirty Money, I think it's called.
It's kind of that green pumpkin coppery top with the chartreuse belly.
Yeah. And walleye in the river, love it. Just love it.
That is one of my like stained water go-to smallie colors.
I also used it in a lake, Charleston Lake, not last year but the year before, and it was another one that I threw in the morning, and I was just kind of swimming it real nice and slow, and once again, smallmouth, love that color. Like, but there's loads of different swim baits and paddle tails for anybody's preference. You know, we could probably go down the scuffer hole on paddle tails for sure. But I would say the one thing that I really liked about the Big Joshies was the packaging.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like packaging is huge for you, but when I look at baits and I'm like, quality packaging to me is like it's not
it's an extension. To me, it's an extension of the craftsmanship, especially the small bait, right? Like,
yes,
you've taken all this time and care to make this thing. You know,
you're just gonna jam it in a bag and
grab a handful, pot it in a bag. Some of them are fine that way, like those HH Customs. The guppies they have such a thin tail that it doesn't matter because they can't get kinked in a way. Like they're too small. But I like how those they like fit. I don't know if this was by design at all, but they like fit perfectly in the like the width of the slots in a Plano box too. So you can like leave them in their packaging and just stack them on top of each other and keep them from getting crushed. Which if you do swim bait fish of any degree with soft baits, like you know that keeping those tails straight is kind of important.
For me, there's nothing worse when you get a package of paddle tails and you're like, oh, I can't wait. There's only one that I can use because all the other ones are on disability right now. Mm-hmm. And I always say
you can boil them and soften them and do the thing. And
I'm like, these guys they're all gimped. They're all gimp tails, you know, like, and you just paid. You know, then you got to take your own time to either way, you know.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to ask you when you were just talking about planos, and this is for me, I generally, when I go down the river, and I did a quick video about this. I showed people like what's in my tackle box, and so for me, I don't really have a tackle box. It's the crate that I take with me, but I use two 3600s, and I have a third 3600 that is nothing but terminal tackle, a little bit of this, that, and whatever. But I literally labeled one single hook presentation, the other one is treble hooks, and for me, it's quick and easy.
I am not far off of that. I have two 3600 size boxes. One is labeled clean water. The other is labeled dirty water. And I have a little double-sided thing. It's like that does not translate in my mind.
That's okay.
That is approximately 5x7.
Yeah, like a 5 by
Yeah, I have like a 5x7.
Like a little plano.
It's the Spro case, the Spro extra large double-sided like waterproof case. That is my terminal tackle. That is all of my terminal tackle for all of my fishing. Whether that's lake, river, anything that I do, I was able to just strip it completely down to just those three boxes. I have I use the Lakewood. I think they're called the billfolds that are like the plastics organizers, and I have several different ones. And I just open that and I say like, okay, like this is what I like. I might take the whole thing in like a practice for a tournament, but once I kind of figure it out, I have on the side of my black pack, I run the 13x13 black pack because it forces me to not take too much stuff.
Yeah.
And I on the side of that I have like one of their little quick draw pouches that I can fit like about I think like 6 or 7 packs of plastics in, and so I'll just fill that and that's it. And I'll just replenish that. I have we didn't get into like my full rig when we went down the scupper hole, but I have 2 rifle cases mounted on bed racks, and one of them is my full camp kitchen on one side and other camping gear. The other side is like tackle. It's my tackle shop, my mobile tackle shop. So like all my favorite plastics. I don't have 10,000 different kinds of plastics that I love. I have like a dozen that I really like. And there's a lot more of those dozen in that box, along with extra terminal and things like that. Cause I don't need to take a 14-pound terminal box out with me when I know that I'm never going to go through more than like 2 of anything, in a given day, usually, especially fishing the straight braid. Like you don't just break stuff off on 30-pound braid.
Okay. So we were before all this, we were talking about, line, and I was sharing my part where I'm like, I've really gone back, is that I've gone to this point in my life where, we were talking about circling back to where it all began. And the one thing I circled back on this year is just using straight braid, and straight braid for me. And I've played around with all sorts of different colors like we had spoken about. And to me, I don't really understand it's why was I so focused on having to run all of these other lines when really you're throwing a reaction. If you're working a reaction, for finesse for sure, I'll run a leader on finesse stuff, but mainly spinning. But for the most part, when it comes to running reaction baits, whatnot, anything from throwing jigs to chatterbaits to buzz baits, you name it, top water, crankbaits, wake baits, glides, whatever it is, braid. And the beauty of braid is it does come in multiple different colors, so it suits any preference there. It's cheap. It'll outlast your all your fluorocarbon and mono and whatnot. And at the end of the day, I do find too, if you do run into the issue, and I run into this issue, is that on the odd time, we all get a little reel blow up, and you're kind of got to sit there for a moment and begin to pull quickly. I find with fluorocarbon or any other line, as you're beginning to pull and you're trying to get it to go out, all of a sudden you start to notice that it's starting to get a little wavy, and you're
if you
like,
get
oh,
kinks in it and
man.
stuff,
Like,
that's a weak point in that line now. And
yeah. And
braid, you have to
so,
just be worried about burning it. So I
yeah,
usually I'll just put some water on the spool to kind of help with that as I kind of pick it out. But I think it picks out way easier.
it totally does. And
And
you can actually save the line. You don't have to sit there and be
yeah,
like, oh, okay, like where else do I have it? Do I have a nick anywhere further that I've,
right.
missed? And I find, you begin to sit there and most people are cautious. So they're, continuously checking, but that takes a lot of time. I find that you spend a lot more time going through your line, making sure it's okay,
Yeah.
than you are worried about where you're putting that lure or what you're actually there to do, which is you're trying to catch fish, not worried.
And those
Oh,
fish, like we talked about this earlier, but those fish know the line's there anyway. Whether it's like absolutely invisible,
yeah,
2 pound fluoro, like spider web, they
yeah,
know it's there. Their lateral line's sensitive enough, so it's not like you're really fooling them that much. Like there's certainly days that anything that looks slightly out of place might put them off, but leave it there just a little bit longer and they're usually just gonna eat it.
yeah. Because I've found that too, where I'm like, I may be using the same style retrieve I used the last time, and then I'm noticing something's off here. And for instance, just like this wake bait that I was throwing, I was just burning it the one time, going, and they were just hammering it. And then what I noticed when I went back that other time and I kept doing the same thing, it wasn't. So I would begin and then I would just kill it. And then the moment I did like 1, 2, 3, if there was something, it would slam it. And it was just wanted to follow it. And then it would like, okay, what are you going to do now? You're going to try and get away? And then boom, kick it up again. And then it was just the fish would hit it. And it for me, it's just that simple change. Really, the line was still flying, like.
Yeah, especially river fish. Like there's a lot of things coming down through that current. Like the line is just another thing coming down through current. And I don't, I think we give bass in general just a lot of credit. At the bottom line, survival is the most important thing to them, and they can't survive if they don't eat. If you're not getting bit, you might need to change your presentation or how you're presenting it, because you might just not be appealing to their appetite of what they're really feeding on or really keyed in on that day. But for the most part, I think if you just cover enough water, like high probability water too, like it's
okay
at some point, like you got to quit watching how to fish. Like learning how to fish. I usually say like watching, because we all do this on YouTube for the most part.
Yeah, well, what are we going to do when we get home from work, and before we go to bed, we're going to sit there and there's some new video that's come out, or
I think instead of learning how to fish or watching how to fish videos, learn about the fish's habitat and behavior and focus far more on location than presentation and things like that. Like if I take, for instance, like when I just practice for a tournament, like one of my just go-to baits, I'll rotate through like a jackhammer, a white chatterbait, and usually like a 7-inch jerk shad or like some other big, like just skittering fast presentation. And it doesn't matter where I'm at or where I'm fishing. I'll take one of those three things, and I always go white. I don't know why, just white will get bit around bass. And I will just go, like, put the motor on like 2.5 mile, run about 2.5 miles an hour, and I just throw as much as I can at the most likely looking stuff until I get bit. And it's not that fish are eating shad in some of these places. It's just that they're competitively feeding, or I found an area with multiple fish and I've sparked that, competitive drive to, outlast the next fish.
But
And it's not that they like spinner baits were on the menu that day. It's just that like if you just strain enough water, it doesn't matter what you throw. You can key that, like I will dial that down and figure it out, further later. One of my least favorite things to do as a tournament angler is figure out a bait. Like I don't want to figure out the bait until the tournament. Because if I get too locked on to like, oh man, they're really eating this jig on Wednesday.
You're so focused on that.
Right. I get so locked on that thing 3 days before that it's hard to let go of it. Right. Like,
it worked. It worked. They're going to eat it. I just got to just
focus on locations. And when you find that location, then you rotate and you kind of change things.
I had said some to you too that I had heard on a podcast, and it was from Drew Gregory. And Drew Gregory, who's phenomenal tournament angler, he had mentioned, when you talk about reaction bites, when you really think about this, at the end of the day, the way he put it was, if I had the water bottle in my hand and I threw it at you, your reaction would be to catch it, because if not, you're going to get hit by the water bottle, right?
Right.
And when you think about the way that you're bringing this idea, just go out and fish. Well, go out there and fish, and that's you're just constantly casting at your spots when you're trying to, let's say, eliminate water or whatnot. You're using those points, and what are you doing? It's a reaction. So like you're going to put something there, you're going to bring it back. There's either going to be something that's going to hit it really quick, or it's usually, it's on to the next thing. And me, it was like, well, and like I even when I go out on the river, and like I'm not a tournament angler by any means, but when I go out on the river, like I use that very same approach, like how I begin to eliminate water as I'm either wading or even in the kayak. Even though this year I felt like the times I've been out, I've spent more time in my taxi, just getting to the spot I need to. And then from there, it's literally like, wade for, solid 80% of the time.
You like Jeff Little has the best term for it. Like once you kind of figure out what piece of cover structure they're kind of utilizing that day. I love his term, the progression of aggression. That's when you start working on that. Like, is it just power all day long, or do I need to slow swim something? Or is it more of a bottom presentation? What's going to get those bigger bites? Because they're often using those same features all throughout the river, but then you just work on that progression of aggression. I love that term. It's like the best way to put it. Like, start at the top, because like power fish the heck out of them, because if they're just eating that, great.
And I remember that too. Way down. Just the way that like Jeff brought that in that, I forget what video.
Recently he's been all over it. Like with this, like he's put out those few on like low clear water, which so he's been. If you don't want to dig for the origin video, we'll say the progression aggression, these last couple that he's put out are all very geared towards the progression of aggression.
And I want to say there was one video where I want to say it's with Alex Rudd and Drew Gregory, and he goes out there and he's like, he's talking like, because you're always learning something from Jeff. Like Jeff doesn't just teach us one thing; he teaches us many things. And it was just he was like, the progression is to go out there with the noisiest bait first, and begin to dial. And it was just so interesting, that when you look at the idea of this, that it's really easy. So you're just going to go out and you're going to throw the biggest and loudest thing. And then you're going to work down from that. Brings you back to what? You're fishing. You're not thinking about what, you're not thinking about you're just fishing. Like you're out there fishing. And the quickest way, reaction bait is definitely it. But for me, it's just one of those things. It was like a light bulb. Like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you you're going to, and yeah, you know, so it's interesting that you bring up the kind of those Jeff points, you know.
It's one of the, like, at some point you know that there's a fish where you think there is a fish, and if they're not eating the big loud topwater or the, you know, chatterbait, or, you know, like, sit there for a second and work through some stuff, because if you, like, you know, for us river guys, like, we know, like, there is a fish right there. I don't know if it's 12 inches or if it's 20, but there is one right there, and I know it. You know, so I will sit there if I'm just struggling and I just haven't, you know, it's just not working. I'll sit there for a second on that really, really, really high percentage spot, and I'll cycle a few things, and I'll figure, okay, that's the thing that'll get them to go. And yeah, then you can take that forward into the rest of the day. But it's listening to what the fish are telling you is certainly, it's more important than what you're presenting, I think, because they tell you what to present if you know, if you just listen.
I think too, a lot of times we're very focused when we get out there, and, you know, we're like, you know, you're looking at graphs and all that. Like, I personally, I don't really run electronics, so I'm not that one that's going to be looking at graphs. But instead, I'm like, I'm not just checking the weather. I'm not just finding out where I need to be location wise. I'm, you know, I've searched Google Maps. I've done my part, but I get out there and I listen to what's going on around me.
Yeah.
You know, and I become, that is where my start point really begins. And like, I start, and there was a lot of, you know, there's been a lot of times too where, like, it didn't really dawn on me until I was getting off the water why certain things were working. And those are things that I consistently, like, I write down, you know, I mark, you know, and I even take pictures of, like, for me, like, I'm big into this, is taking pictures of where I'm fishing.
Yeah.
When the water's much lower, because when the water's high and you know, I can remember where I need to be, but it tells me something that, oh yeah, like, if I
actually,
that way, it's, you know, there's a boulder out there. There's actually like a tree that's way down in the river there that's fallen and would be covered if the water was higher. But yeah, I really kind of let that aspect of is more like kind of understanding, and it helps me understand what the fish are doing.
Yeah, I just put a graph back on my kayak for, like, the first time in a couple years. Like, I've had one sitting in the garage, and I ended up it was from when I had a PA and a much bigger boat, and, like, but, like, the 9-inch screen is, like, way overkill on the river. And honestly,
yeah, that's what I have.
I traded it to a kid. Like, he made out on the deal because he got, like, a barely used, aside from the river, the transducer that had seen some river abuse. He got he got a Helix 9, like, mega side imaging. Just straight up trade him for a Garmin Striker 7.
Wow.
It just saved me the hassle. And all I really, it's not even, I don't even want the graph. I just want the mapping. Just put waypoints, because it's way more efficient to do that than they pull my Google Maps out every single time.
Google Maps.
Yeah, because, like, in you know, so much of tournament fishing is, like, once you kind of, like, so much of it is just being efficient, right? So less of this, and I can just look at my screen and say, okay, that's over there, or this is over, you know. And so I did start doing that, but it's, I looked at, before I even pulled the trigger on doing this swap, and this is, like, literally a month ago I did this. I was looking at, like, overland, just GPS units that I can drop waypoints on and just, like, mount, because I was like, I don't care if I have a transducer at this point. Like, the map is more important to me than anything else. You know, I've been also, like, recently just arguing with a buddy about, like, you know, he's very, like, oh man, the barometric pressure is doing this and that and that. I was like, I have the day that I have to go fishing. The fish are going to do whatever they do. I just have to figure it out. I'm not real big on looking at the weather a lot before I go fishing. Like, I don't plan trips around the weather. And like you said, like you sit there and you listen to like what's going around, like going around you.
Yeah, like
It
nature
starts on the
itself.
drive for me. Yeah, I start looking for like, are the deer feeding? Like, how far out in the fields are they? Because if they're not right on edge lines, you know, they're really feeding if they're that far out and it's daylight at this point. Because, you know, normally as the light starts to come up, especially in the morning, the deer get closer and closer and closer to the tree lines. That's at least around here, but it's stuff I notice, and I listen for the birds. Birds are a big indicator of it too. Like, are they feeding? Because if they're feeding, usually everything else is. Yeah, there's like, nature kind of has a way of letting you know it's going on. You don't need to drag Ned worms today, you know, or you need to throw that dirty little worm. But it's I can't remember where I was going with that now.
that's yeah. But like, that's just that whole part of, you know, I don't know, I guess it is for me, is that's kind of how I use my approach to my time on the water. Is that, you know, the moment I begin to leave the house, like you said, you know, for use on the drive, you know, it's,
I think it's important though too, because it's that, like, I mean, we as anglers want to catch fish, but I think like at a larger scale, bigger picture, it's just, you know, it's bringing you into a connectedness with nature and like the world around you. Like, I don't know, like, I always feel a little bit more imbalanced when I'm that tuned in to everything around me, that I have those great days.
Can I ask you, do you, like, for me, like, kayak fishing is like my calm water, you know, like it's for me, it's that part where I can get out on the river and I can just, you know, kind of escape everything else that's going on, and I can just go out there and fish, you know, like it's an escape, it's my serenity, whatever it is, it's my calm water. And like, do you feel like like do you have that aspect? Because it kind of sounded like you were going that way.
It became, so I spent just shy of 7 years in the Marine Corps, 4 of which were in the infantry. I did two combat tours in Iraq, 05, 06, 07, were the years I was there, and saw plenty. I had all of the experiences you would expect somebody going overseas to a combat, you know, to a war zone would have. And I was spun out when I got back, because they teach you how to do that. They have a hard time teaching you how to undo that. And so I found peace on the river, you know, and
man, I'm happy
before the kayak and stuff like that, but just fishing became my happy place, and just being on the water in general. And so yeah, it's definitely that. And then the tournament side of thing came much later, and it kind of filled that void of competitiveness that I kind of missed from the service and being a Marine. And
but were you competitive before you were in the military? Were you kind of like growing up, were you that competitive?
I was, but I wasn't good at it. I grew up I went to a high school. My graduating class was 44 kids. And
oh, wow.
That is not a private school. That was a public school.
I was just going to actually ask you that.
So we had basketball. That was the, you know.
Oh.
I'm a terrible basketball player.
Oh.
Terrible. So I played a little bit of golf. I skateboarded a lot. And I was I was an art nerd. I was an art nerd. I did a lot of I played in band through middle school, and I always, my grandma was an artist, so I've been painting and drawing and stuff since I was like 5 years old. So that's been another outlet for me.
It's like, that's super cool though, because a lot of people like nowadays can't really like to be arts. Like my daughter is huge into art. Like she's
Yeah.
very, and when I was a kid, I loved to draw. I remember my parents buying me drawing like books teaching
Yeah.
you how to like
Yep.
draw certain stuff and paint and whatnot. And till this day,
I think I was in like right when I started junior high, I was like I got kind of into comic books before the movies really started, you know.
yeah,
But like I had it in my head, I was like, man, I'm gonna be a comic book artist. Like that's what I'm gonna do.
Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
Who
But
did
I
Spawn. He was like, I
that
thought
was one of
when
my
that came out, it was like,
favorites coming as a kid.
wow,
Yeah.
this is amazing. Like I was like, it's so dark. It's just the way it's drawn. It's like, and it was, and I remember sitting there, and I don't even know if I still have it, but I remember sketching like these. Like I would like, you know, like you get the comic book and the one little picture would be like that, and I would sit there and I would sketch it. You know, like I would sit there and
Yep.
sketch. You know, but yeah, no, that's for me.
I do that with just like river spots now. I just sketch that stuff. But I like as a kid, like the competitiveness, it was never like it wasn't like the tip like your I guess stereotypical like sports competitiveness. I learned how to be competitive with myself, and it was always like pushing myself to like I have like I need to do this better. I need to do this better. I need to do this better. And a lot of that was like with art and music and things like that. I would like okay, I've learned this part, but I can now I got to learn this part, and now I got to learn this part, and I just kept building onto that. And I think ultimately that did translate well into fishing because it was like, okay, I learned how to fish jigs. Now let me learn how to fish, you know, this and that and this and that. And I can specifically with jigs when I wanted to learn that, I just for two or three straight days, I would just go to this one lake that had a bunch of wood, a bunch of grass, and a bunch of rocks, all in different areas. And I would go drive just to each of these places, and I would just fish it in that stuff until I knew exactly what that felt like. And so that way I could go anywhere, and I was like, that's rock, that's wood, that's, you know, and I would do that I did that with crankbaits and like all sorts of things. And I would, so like before graphs, before, you know, I got into electronics or any of that stuff, I would oftentimes just take a crankbait or a jig and I would just drag it around to feel transitions, to feel for grass, to feel for wood, things like that. And like I remember getting on one of the best smallmouth bites, like pre-spawn bites, like early pre-spawn, like early March-ish time frame. They were just moving up onto these flats. And like 17 feet of water is what I was cranking. And my buddy's like, what are you feeling? And I was like, it feels like you're going from 60 grit sandpaper to like, you'll hit a patch of 80.
Oh, wow.
Like, what? I was like, yeah, it's super subtle, dude.
Yeah.
But every time I would feel that transition, I would just start like worming the crankbait real slow, and then my rod would just load. And it was like every time it happened, it was like an 18 to 21 inch smallmouth, like every single time. And there were I'm sorry, I had my grits mixed up. It was going from 80 to 60, and it was like really specifically the specific zebra mussel beds. That was the difference. I finally figured it out, like what I was actually feeling in 17 feet of water. But like that's all I could describe. I was like, I'm literally going from like a pea gravel to like pea gravel with some zebra mussels.
Yeah, there's the grit, you know, the grits, the zebra mussels.
Yep. And but yeah, it was, had I have not spent all that time, you know, feeling what crankbait feels like and all this stuff, like I couldn't pick it up. Like it's so imperceptible that like I had side imaging, I had down imaging on that trip, and I couldn't tell the difference on the screen. Like there's not a,
you have to go and fish.
Yeah.
You have to go out there and do it. And that's one of the ways, you know, I always hear people talking about like, oh, like how should I fish this? How should I fish that? You know, what does this feel like? And it's like, there's no way to really describe this to you. You need to go and fish it, you know, like you need to go like, well, but I'm not catching anything.
Well, time, like put the
put the
time
time in, put the seat time in, put the rod
Yeah.
time in, go out there, cast, and do it. Like that's the way to become proficient on the water, or just
Any,
in general
yeah.
with the lure.
Well, anyone can say like, "Oh, you take this and this is how you fish it," but like, if you and I were fishing in the same spot in the same hole, and I gave you the same rod, reel, setup I have, line, everything, same bait, no matter how I tell you to fish that, you're going to fish it differently than me.
Exactly.
Fact. We're too, you know, as people, we're too individually unique that we're going to do it different, like nuances, but different.
Exactly.
You know, in the same place. And I've done that with buddies that are like, why are you still catching them? And I can't. Like, we're never going to fish things the same way. It's, you know, so it's, yeah, there's, yeah, the individuality, I think, in fishing it's a very subjective thing, and it's unique to each and every one of us how we do things, and you kind of have to use that stuff to like learn the basics, but then you really have to just figure out how it works for you.
Yeah, and what do you,
yeah.
and not everybody throws everything. Like I'm just gonna say, not everybody throws everything. Everybody, like when you go out on the water, most times you throw things that you want to throw. You know what I mean? Like you'll have your what you like to. I don't think I really need to bring, every little bit of tackle with me. I found in the past I do that, and it's like I spent more times just cycling through stuff, and like even the amount of rods that I bring with me on the river, I don't need, the battleship image. Like I just, instead I bring, whether it's 2 casting rods and a spinning rod, or it's, or I just bring, 2 spinning rods with me, whatever it is. And that's what I go with, and
yeah,
to me,
four is my max. If anyone listening is familiar with Jake Hepner, he helps Drew run the Kayak Adventure Series. He's got a whole YouTube channel, but look up his video on his 4-rod system if you're struggling to downsize.
Yeah, that's one where he talked about like the crate size he brings, the Bass Mafia bag, and then he talks about the 4 rods.
His 4-rod system. It's like, he kind of has that top water, bottom, middle of the column, and then his 4th rod is his specialty rod.
Specialty rod, yeah.
Yeah. And I've really kind of adopted Jake's system with that, and I think it's
remember
really
that
good
video.
way to it's a real, if you struggle with downsizing, or maybe you just want to max out at 4 rods or something like that, like what do I get? Well, I think that's a good spot to start, because you don't need an arsenal of rods.
Oh God, no. If you want to, that's fine.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's your time on the water should be spent the way that you like it. But yeah, for me, no. Like I'm very, like, I think I can only fit.
I'm hard on stuff. You have to ask yourself these things too.
Rods,
like, do you want a bunch of $600 rods, or like me? I'm hard on stuff. I'm like $150 max. So
I can attest to this. So I in the end, I got rid of a lot of my higher end stuff, rods, reels, and I've fished them all, like everything from the NRX series for G Loomis down to, Mega Bass, Levantes, up to the Orochi series, the JDM stuff. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. And, I'm not trying to at all start any arguments with anybody when I say this, but this is my own personal opinion. I don't honestly understand the difference, because I fish now with these. I fish, like I think I have a couple $150 combo with couple lower end reels, and I enjoy it just as much as I did before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
having that high end expensive stuff, that, don't get me wrong, the sensitivity on some of those rods is unreal. And like they do fit the ballpark of, you know, high end rods. But I go out there now and I think I went back to using, you know, because that's what I had to use, you know, my lower end lose specials, and those 100 and, I think probably the most expensive one is like $150 rod, and that's what I use, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, and it's true because I am rough on my stuff. Like when I'm like, and I, after I got into my accident and I ended up breaking like 3G Loomis rods, um, yeah, you know, like I'm rough on my stuff either way. Like I take care of my stuff, but when I'm out there on the river, yeah, like, you know, like
It happens.
you know, rods end up in the water. You pull, and
Yep.
most of the time when I'm pulling my kayak through the bush, you know, it's like I'm going, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I hear something. I'm like, oh god, and there's that rod, and it's like, you know, it's hooked onto the
Boat over.
tree,
And
and
he's
it's
like, yeah.
you know, you
Yeah.
you got a big log, and like, I don't know, like I
Yeah.
went back to the basics, like very basic combos this year, even with my son, you know, like we really just share our stuff, you know, like it's,
Yeah.
he got his setup and I got, but then most times he's like, Dad, can I use this one? Sure, go ahead, you know. And he's, you know, 12, he uses a bait caster, but yeah, no, like I don't know, I kind of felt like in either way, like I still get out there on the water, I still fish, I still have fun. And you know, I'm not in, I don't know, I guess it's true, I'm not like, oh man, like, ooh, you know, like, oh, something's hit,
Well,
ooh, the rod tip, ooh,
yeah.
you know, it's
Well,
like,
there's also a different feeling. Like if you break $100 rod halfway through a river trip, you're like, that's pretty easy to shrug off. If you break a $600 rod,
yeah, you're like,
you dwell on it all day long, you
yeah.
know, and it kind of stinks the trip, man. Um,
And like for me, I'll always pack an extra reel.
yeah.
So I'll have an extra. So if I have like a cast, if I'm throwing casting gear, I'll always have an extra bait caster on board. Why? Just in case something happens. And I had it happen this year where I had, and this is no word of a lie, I have had this lose American Hero bait caster. Oh my god, I probably have had it
Dude.
since I got into got into fishing. So this would have been like back in 2010, 11. Yeah, it would have been probably about 2011. And this year, it has finally got to the point where like it finally gave out on me.
I I have an old Lose Laser MG that is, I think it was like $70 when I got it, and I can't kill it. It's still alive today. Um,
And I bought that
yep.
used. So I was the same way. Like I got this
Yeah.
used, and it finally, I don't know, it's like it just won't, like the thumb
bar
piece,
won't.
it won't come back up. Like it's like I made a cast and it was and I was like, I couldn't, and the line just blew. Anyways, all I did, take that out, put the other one on, okay, done. And it was like, you have yourself, you can just get right back to what you're throwing. You didn't your trip wasn't ruined. But man, I'm telling you, like I've had that, and it just goes to show you, like, I don't know, maybe they make them the same way they do, but I will say that that thing has lasted me for years, you know, and it was one of my favorite reels. Like it really was, like, but if you look at it, its price point is well under $100.
It's I get, I mean, I don't throw anything too crazy reel wise. Like I'm definitely like capped at like $200 on a reel, and that's even like my old like Daiwa SVs. It's just my favorite skipping reel, and that's partly the brake system, and I don't mind paying for that because, again, when I'm talking efficiency, it's like, well, that's 10 times less backlashes throughout the day, especially if I'm skipping everything. And then I throw, just dealing with current, everything is like 8-1 and higher for the most part. So I've really taken a liking to the Cast King Mega Jaws, because they make that 9-1. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And
I have a Cast King Mega. It's like a 200 size reel.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Is it red?
No.
Well, I guess so. They come in different colors, I think, based on the gear ratio. So the red ones are 9-1, and yeah.
There's a black.
Yeah, there's a black.
Yeah, I think
so.
I think the
to look like it has shark teeth on the front.
I want to say it does. That one there is the one that I have. I think it's the is it Megatron? Megatron, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The Cast King Megatron 200, and that's the one that I use for my bigger bait presentations.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, that, yeah, and it was a reel that I picked up last winter, I think it was, and it was just like, I was like this because I wanted a bigger reel so that I could throw, just have something with a little more line capacity other than the ones that I had.
Yep.
And yeah, it works well. And I want to say you could probably buy it brand new for like I think you could probably get it on Amazon for like $120, if that.
Yeah, as I said, those Mega Jaws are high end 150 new. I think I've picked both of mine up for sub $100 used and like darn near brand new in the box. So they're easy to find and you're not breaking any budget. And if you lose the entire combo, which happens sometimes,
yes,
I think we've all done it.
Mm-hmm.
I hit a run where I lost like 3 rods and 3 trips, like whole combos just gone for just dumb reasons. And that really put me in that mood of like, you know what, if I'm just going to do this all the time, maybe I'll quit buying really expensive stuff. And
I'll be honest with you, I was kind of like, it's like, yeah, like, like any, like you can go down that good old rabbit hole of, really expensive gear and whatnot. And that's fine, but it is very easy to become overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of great stuff out there, but then it's like, I'm like, wow, you have a, let's say a $700 combo. Yeah, but it's a specialty combo, but I don't throw it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, the trickle down of technology, which like this is without trying to dive too far down this, like the trickle down of technology is like rods and reels just get better every year because last year's like good stuff became this year's middle of the road, and it just continues that way a lot of times. The very high end stuff, I think there's a place for that. And it's, the people
100%.
making it, the components and things like that. But yeah, again, we can dive further down that, but
this might actually be this we're going to save that.
Yeah.
We're going to save that because we might go down the scuffer hole at some point about this. And this could be a really interesting one to dive down. And who knows, it could go on for hours and hours and hours.
I would love to hear that one.
Okay.
Okay. So my vote is for yes. Go down the scupper hole on that.
All right. So I love ideas for this down the scupper hole from anybody who's watching or listening. But I did want to say one thing is when you left, because you had to step out from down the scupper hole, and you had to go and join the Dark Horse live that you do every Thursday. So And for the folks that don't know what Dark Horse is, just give them a little run through. But your lives are great, so like I just wanted to chat with you about that.
Thank you. Dark Horse Tackle is they are a very big pusher of the small bait makers. A lot of American made stuff. We would have Canadian made stuff if it weren't for the international shipping. One day, I think they would love to get there, because there's like,
I have gotten Dark Horse boxes in the past, and I think they are loaded with some pretty cool stuff. And you can go all different ways with it. I think it was this would have been like probably like
they
a couple
do
years
a really good job at tracking down some really unique stuff. And finding bait makers who are really pushing the envelope of innovation, long before it really becomes, much more known. Or, I mean, we all know how the industry works. Like, eventually if it does really well, somebody takes that and mass produces it. And that's fine. That's just how it works. But, if you ask me, I think the true innovation, as far as baits are concerned and lure making and stuff, it happens at that small mom and pop shop level, because they can afford to take the risk, because they're not trying to appease everyone. They're maybe trying to come out with that next chatterbait or whatever it might be type thing. So they're constantly tinkering, and it's more driven. I'm a tinkerer. I mess with baits. I make my own resin stuff. Like, I mean, I play
tackle
with
crafting.
everything. Oh yeah.
I love that. Well, I shouldn't say. I should slow down. Like, I'm not. I make it sound like, oh man, I do this all the time. But in the winter,
it's how I
like
spend a lot of my winters. Yeah.
I tie my own jigs, and I got into that just once again watching a Jeff Little video, literally. And then I was talking with Russ Snyder's, and we were talking about, like, he's talking about paints and whatnot, and I was like, oh, actually, like I'm like that guy that, like, if I don't have any more white or black, when it comes to, let's say, like top water, or like just like some more just plain Jane colors, I'm like, spray can guy, here I go. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that's probably like, people are like, oh, I don't know if you can do that, but like, yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I played around with different stuff there too. And spinner baits, I always keep old spinner baits, and I'll take, that don't have a skirt on it, or like I'll switch blades.
Yeah.
I'll paint.
I have a box. I have a box of more spinnerbait parts than I do actual spinnerbaits, because I just swap parts out on them all the time until the wire busts or whatever. And but yeah, I've talked tackle craft with Russ and Jeff. It kind of stems from my like fly fishing. I used to tie all my own flies and do that stuff.
Such an art, dude. Like, that's where I was actually gonna ask you about the whole art thing, because I find, like, when you were talking about doing art as a kid, and and then you kind of go to now, and it's something that you're passionate about, and you can see it, and you're like, yeah, okay, boom, like I can actually. Yeah, I could actually, like.
Yeah, like I'm looking up over here because I wanted to see if it was like actually in like arm's reach, but like, yeah, like I've been messing around with like some like shiner glides that are much more thin, and there's a whole process, and I'm getting close on these things, but like paint jobs, clear coats, everything, or but I carved that from wood originally, made a mold, did the whole resin thing. But this goes into like pouring plastics, and then like I have like certain hollow body frogs that I like, so I've pulled the legs out of them, and I've made a mold so that I can cast extra legs instead of spending $10 every time fish destroy the legs.
See, there you go. Yeah, the budget angler. I like this. But I really do.
Part of it is like, there's a lot of stuff that I like, but so much of this is really a river driven thing for me, because I love fishing current and rivers. Like, glide baits especially are a lot more geared towards lakes, and you need certain elements of design that make them a little bit better in current, or like I can't sit there and just chop a glide bait next to a laydown if I've got current moving over it. It's just going to wash it right off. So like, I need something that gets really choppy, but I can burn,
Yeah.
And so that's the goal with this is like, I want this to be at a point where it doesn't blow out burning it on a 9-to-1, which is a difficult thing. Like this is only 1.5 inches tall. Like it's a hard thing to accomplish with a bait when this is down a whole nother rabbit hole. The distance between your like center of buoyancy or like the height, your float basically, and your weight, the closer that is, the harder it is to get it to be balanced under that much speed.
And this is why you do the Dark Horse lives every Thursday, because you are the guy to talk to about this stuff. Like you're like I don't want to say you're a mad scientist, but like this is the type of things that I think about when I'm going through bait selection, when I'm looking at how I need to present something. Like I really do kind of go down that rabbit hole of like, okay, like how, like, you know, when you think of like current, how's that going to react with it? How is my presentation going to be to how I present it and how I bring it back? You know, like how do I get it to go a little further down in the water column? You know, why does it sink so fast? Can I change that? You know,
it's been fun. Like when I did that July box for Dark Horse, and there's a company called Mule Fishing, and they have well, the bluegrass bug is the bug that I put in there, but it's an elastomer, kind of elastec-y type material, so it's buoyant. It was designed by John Dalton of Creek Fishing Adventures, and I like over the winter I started playing with this because I have like a little tub that I'll fill with water, and I'll just rig things different ways that I want to like experiment with, you know, in the coming year. And I started sending him messages on Instagram or something, and I was like, have you fished this as a topwater? Like, tell me about this. What was your thought on the design? And so I started rigging this thing like a million different ways and sending it to him like, oh man, you can line through it on a size 8 dress treble, and it's phenomenal. It says just, you know, like butt down a little bit and like all sorts of stuff. I've actually found, the core tackle scamper rigs in those are pretty phenomenal. You can, So I was like shoving a nail in it, and you know, like
I've done that,
hooking it or nose hooking it, and it was like this slow sink. But you'd eventually, like the nail just flies out eventually, like very quickly, like more so than other plastics because it's so soft. And I figured out, the scamper rig with that, you know, the weight poured over the shank of the hook, it's accomplishing the same thing.
Did you ever try when you were pushing the nails into soft plastics? Did you ever heat the nail up and then press it in?
Whatever that's made out of, it melts a little too quick.
Okay.
So I would try like a little dab of super glue would hold it in a little longer, and like different stuff.
Because I've done that where I'm like, I have a hard time where it's like, I'm like,
I'll actually shove it in, and I'll just melt the end where I shoved it in.
Okay.
It just reseals the plastic a lot of times. That's another way that I like to just do it.
That's an even better approach, because then the way I was doing it was like I'd heat it up and then I'd stick it in there, and then at least I knew like as it was like, you know, hot enough, it would like melt that plastic around it, and it would just kind of hold it in place.
I have not tried. You may have to pre-rig them, but I know that like Z-Man's Elastec, if for like screw locks, we all know if we've ever tried a screw lock in Elastec, oh man, this just doesn't work. If you don't mind pre-rigging them, if you freeze them, there is like when they get a little bit harder, you can get a screw lock in there, but you have to leave it in because they'll soften right back up as they thaw. But if you throw them all in the freezer and pre-rig some with screw locks, you can do it that way. They screw right in.
It would make sense because now you're just it's like putting a screw into wood when you think about it, because that thing's just like solid now instead of it being in its like very buoyancy. You know, it's resisting wanting to actually take that screw head.
Fun. I don't remember exactly. I learned that from someone, and I wish that I could credit them with that information, but it was like when I learned that, I was like, oh my god, like I said, how have I never thought of that? And it's like, well, because you don't think about throwing your soft plastic baits in the freezer. That's just
I'll be honest, I never thought of that
not
either.
a normal
Like,
thing.
dude,
But
like
as soon as I heard it, I was like, that makes complete sense. Why,
and
like,
that's
yeah.
what's going through my head right now. Is literally like that does make
So
complete
yeah.
sense.
But
Why
yeah,
didn't I think of that?
you know,
So
I think the guys at Dark Horse find all these little companies and stuff, and there's some real
yeah,
gems of design. Like in it, you know, all right, yeah, it's advertised as a shaky head worm, but man, it's the little design features make them very unique in a long line of shaky head worms. Like, ooh, this one stands out, and
yeah,
that's my favorite part of the whole thing. Is like, I'll get the boxes, and I'm like, there's always one thing that just jumps right out at me. That
yeah.
like, oh, ooh, I like that, and then there's like another 3 or 4 things that I'll circle back around on like months later. And it's like, didn't I get that in a box? And I'd go out to the garage and I've got like stacks of these boxes now. I should start labeling them because I kind of remember what month they came in, but they're all out of order by that point. Like,
Yeah, and it always comes with that card, and the card has like who's the featured person of the month.
yeah,
And so you did the river box.
yeah. There's always some special collaboration boxes, a couple of those throughout
Yeah.
the year, and
Now so then on Thursdays you do the Dark Horse Live, where you sit down with both Zach
and Josh.
I was gonna say Chris,
Yep.
but Josh. And like the two of them are rather hilarious individuals. I have to say. Like they're very entertaining.
You can tell they've spent some time together. And,
yeah, and
I think they brought me in to inform some people, but also maybe be a little bit of glue that holds the.
I was, and so you get on, you guys chat usually for like an hour, or like you.
We shoot for an hour. It's almost always about an hour 20, just because we get into a topic and it's just
tell me about it, man.
And it's easy to talk about stuff, and I see the time in the corner of this, but like it's easy when you get into it. It's just easy to talk about this stuff,
and this is what people like to talk about. So why not keep the conversation going? So as we come to the end of our podcast, once again, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on a second time. First coming on the first time for the Down the Scuff Roll, and then the second time just because I wanted to sit down and chat with you. You definitely, it's really cool when you sit down with another river angler, and you guys are kind of like, you're like, oh yeah, I do that. No way, I do that too. Like I felt like this is one of those moments. But I do want to say, I do want to wish you all the best as you make your way to the final Kayak Adventure Series this weekend. At Broodstock. I know I'm going to be watching that leaderboard and just rooting you guys on. But for the folks at home who don't know, where can they find you? I'll let you.
The where I'm the most active and where you're getting most of my current information and just following along with my experiences in my adventure is Instagram. That's Parker Fishing 1242. And that's really the best place to follow along. As time allows, I'd like to get into YouTube a little bit more, but for now,
that's a commitment. Instagram it is. No, like I said, dude, I just want to say thank you very much for stopping on by the podcast. And for everybody at home who's watching, who is, like I said, take the time, go check out Parker Fishing, Mr. Ryan Parker. Check out his Instagram. Go check out also Dark Horse Tackle. Watch him on the lives every Thursday at 8:00. It sounds like they have a YouTube channel. They do Instagram also, Dark Horse Tackle. But from myself, I'm your host, Adam Frasr. Once again, thank you for stopping on by the River Run podcast. My guest tonight, Mr. Ryan Parker. Dude, I look forward to having you on again. And
anytime.
Till the next time, we'll see you soon. Ciao.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, for future shows, like, follow, share, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out our individual channels and accounts too. Want to be a guest on one of our shows and talk of adventures, gear, or products? Contact us. Thank you for watching The Noob Show with Matt Gibson, Chasing the Tide, Dustin Nichols, The Rusty Hook with John Rapp, The River Run with Adam Frasr Pross, May Contain Fishing with Daniel Woodcock, Chasing the 20s with Carlisle Esterly and Sean Lavery, Friday Night Bites with Brian Schiller. Thanks for tuning into the Paddle and Fin Network. Subscribe and always wear your PFD.